Good morning. The Committee on Education and Labor will now come to order and welcome everyone. The committee is meeting today for a Members' Day hearing. This hearing is an opportunity for non-committee members to inform the committee of their interests and priorities as it relates to the committee's jurisdiction. Members who wish to testify will sit on the panel remotely, and each member will be given 5 minutes to present their testimony orally. After the member presentations, committee members may ask questions if they wish. This is an entirely remote hearing, and committee members are familiar with the practice and procedures of remote hearings, and our members and witnesses are also familiar with the 5-minute rule. Should the chair experience technical difficulties or need to step away to the floor to vote, Dr. Adams or another majority member is hereby authorized to assume the gavel in the chair's absence. While a roll call is not necessary to establish a quorum of official proceedings conducted remotely or with remote participation, the committee has often made it a practice whenever there is an official proceeding with remote participation for the clerk to call the roll to help make clear who is present at the start of the proceeding. However, in light of votes which may be called fairly soon, we will forego that roll call. Pursuant to Committee Rule 8C, opening statements are limited to the chair and ranking member, so I'll recognize myself now for the purpose of making an opening statement. Today, the committee is gathered to hear from members of Congress about their priorities for improving our educational system, supporting workers, making healthcare more affordable, and strengthening our economy. The committee's jurisdiction covers a wide range of policy areas that impact Americans across the country throughout their lives, from birth to retirement. Accordingly, we have the responsibility to receive input and ideas from members of Congress representing all parts of our diverse nation. Today's hearing is an opportunity to engage in an open dialogue about the work we must still do to support our communities. And so we will discuss how we can work together in a bipartisan manner to help our constituents recover from the COVID-19 pandemic and improve the quality of life for students, educators, workers, and families. I want to thank the members who are joining us today and welcome your input and look forward to working together to ensure that America is a country where everyone can succeed. I now recognize the distinguished ranking member for the purpose of making an opening statement. Dr. Fox.
Thank you, sir. I apologize. There's a lot going on this morning. I'm not going to take up too much time. I acknowledge the work our committee does to provide educational opportunities for all Americans, ensure a well-equipped, high-quality workforce, and allow business owners to thrive in a free enterprise economy. From pre-K to retirement, this committee touches every American life and impacts the way we learn, work, and succeed. In fact, in the 4 months since the 117th Congress began, more than 40% of the rule bills have come out of this committee. Our jurisdiction spans from protecting religious liberty and freedom of speech on college campuses to ensuring balance in labor management relations and combating overzealous enforcement by federal bureaucrats. And while we continue to work on these policies, today is an opportunity to broaden further those horizons and hear from new voices. Mr. Chairman, I could brag all morning about this committee, but I'll end by welcoming our guests to the best committee in Congress. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. And we appreciate the members for their testimony today. Before the witnesses begin, we'll remind you to unmute and be cognizant of how much time you have remaining. We'll let all of the witnesses make their presentations before we move on to member questions. The first witness we have with us today is the gentlelady from Pennsylvania's 5th Congressional District, Representative Scanlon.
Thank you, Chairman Scott, Ranking Member Fox, and the entire committee. Thank you for holding this hearing and providing us with the opportunity to share my constituents' priorities with the committee. As a former school board member and representative of a district that includes over 20 institutions of higher ed, ranging from private to community colleges to technical schools, we know that from preschool through post-secondary, investing in education is a crucial piece of our nation's recovery from the pandemic, as well as a necessary foundation for our children's future. I represent Pennsylvania's 5th Congressional District, which includes parts of Philadelphia and its suburbs. Our K through 12 schools range from some of Philadelphia's or Pennsylvania's and the nation's highest performing schools to some of its most under resources. Philadelphia School District is the largest school district in the Commonwealth and one of the largest in the country. Even before the pandemic, K through 12 public schools across my region were in desperate need of repairs. I have toured schools with children in my district and have seen crumbling paint, crumbling infrastructure, rooms that were unusable because they had exposed heating elements. Local reporting has uncovered way too many troubling instances of damaged asbestos, lead pipes, and asthma triggers like mold and mildew inside our schools. And our region has one of the highest asthma rates for children in the country. So these unhealthy, toxic schools pose safety risks that make children, educators, and staff sick. So especially now, as we have schools working to bring students back to the classroom, the need for investment in our public school facilities is even more apparent. So I really am very grateful to Chairman Scott for his leadership on school infrastructure. Congress made significant progress last year, passing H.R. 2, the Moving Forward Act, which included legislation from the Ed and Labor Committee to rebuild America's schools. And we really, really need that support. I strongly support the president's commitment to investing in the modernization and repair of public school facilities as part of the American Jobs Plan. Our children, our teachers, our school staff deserve to learn and work in safe buildings. The pandemic's been hard on students with disabilities, and disrupted and delayed learning has had an especially outsized impact. As we help students make up for lost time in the classroom, we need to invest specifically in K through 12 special education and early intervention services included under the IDEA. Time and again, school leaders have told us they need additional IDEA funding. We need to meet the promise of the IDEA from over 40 years ago to fully fund that mandate. All students are entitled to a free and appropriate public education, and we need to help school districts ensure that students with disabilities receive the high quality education they deserve. I also ask that your committee continue to lead on solutions to make college more accessible and affordable for all. Pennsylvanians have one of the highest student debt loads in the country, including the highest amount of average debt and one of the higher percentages of people who have debt. I often hear from my constituents burdened with student loan debt. All too often, I meet with parents whose children's college education choices have been limited by the fact that their parents are still paying off their own debt. We need to support and invest in improving the opportunities for all students, improving the quality of higher ed, and lowering the cost of college. We also need to support and invest in alternative pathways to four-year degrees, such as apprenticeships, which make up the backbone of voc ed programs in a region like mine. As we work to rebuild our economy, it's essential to connect workers with opportunities that give them access to the critical skills and high-paying jobs of the future, not the past. And they need those jobs to support themselves and their families. So thank you again to the committee for its work on these important issues and for allowing me the opportunity to share these priorities with you. I am looking so forward to working with you in this new Congress. And with that, I yield back.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. The next witness is the gentleman from Rhode Island's 2nd Congressional District, Mr. Lynchman.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Very good. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Fox, members of the committee. I want to thank you for accepting my testimony on my education and labor priorities this morning. I want to extend my sincerest thanks, particularly to you, Chairman Scott, for your leadership and the members of the committee in providing an equitable education for all students, promoting fair labor practices, and ensuring that we prepare our workforce for the challenges that lie ahead. So, Mr. Chairman, my first priority as co-chair of the Career and Technical Education Caucus is that we continue to fund and strengthen CTE and similar workforce development programs. CTE programs have been proven to launch students into rewarding careers and fill workforce gaps. Classes in cybersecurity, coding, graphic design, and robotics, just by way of example, make CTE the workforce pipeline of the future. My second priority is to provide resources for English learners and promote bilingual education. The English learner population is rapidly growing in Rhode Island, my home state, as well as it is across the country. These students require particular assistance to stay on grade level, and our country should celebrate students who can speak multiple languages. Moreover, there is an English learner teacher shortage. So to that end, I will be reintroducing the Reaching English Learners Act to address that gap. So this bill will fund partnerships between institutions of higher education and high need school districts to develop teacher prep programs that are tailored to train teachers on providing bilingual education, offering social, emotional support, and engaging with families and communities. And the bill also includes a loan forgiveness program. Finally, I urge this committee to take up Dominic and Ed's law, which I introduced yesterday. Mr. Chairman, young people who become permanently disabled have their student loans forgiven, but this isn't the case for the loans taken out for student loans for by their families, and I believe that they should be forgiven as well. It's time for Congress to address this glaring loophole to make sure that the parents aren't struggling to pay off student debt as they help their kids who are dealing with now a significant disability after the fact and a significant life change. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank you and the committee again for the opportunity to testify before you today, and yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you. We'll have all of the witnesses. Ms. Scanlon still with us? I don't see her camera on.
Yes,
Okay, good, thank you.
sure.
We'll now have questions from committee members. And I'll recognize myself first and thank both of the witnesses for being with us today. You both mentioned issues that we're working on. You both supported the apprenticeship legislation and the rescue bill, which will go a long way in addressing some of the issues that have been brought up. But the alternative education and the funding where it's most needed. The K through 12 money was distributed based on the Title I formula, which means it'll go to the areas where it is most needed. And so I appreciate the testimony from both of you, and will yield back the balance of my time and recognize the ranking member, Dr. Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have read the testimony that's been submitted by all of the witnesses, and I have no questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Grijalva.
Thank you,
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I have no questions, and other than to thank our colleagues for their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentlelady from Florida, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the members who have taken time to come before our committee today. The rescue bill that we just passed is going to provide so much support for your public education in your particular cities. However, I'm not sure about capital improvement as far as building new schools. But I heard you say that you were a member of the school board representative, and I think in this particular where we are now and the climate of schools and the major, I guess you would say, the major role that schools played throughout the pandemic and that teachers played keeping children afloat, and parents realized that the teacher's job was so hard because there they were with children at home and they had no idea what to do with them. I think it is time for your district to float a bond issue and get the people to sign on to that bond issue so that you can go in and repair those broken schools. I was on the school board, we did a bond issue. I was a school principal, we did a bond issue. And now we're in the midst of another one. So we have no crumbling schools. So a lot of times people don't realize the importance or the impact that schools actually make on a community. In fact, they are the heart of your community. So this would be a great time to float that. And I also wanted to let you know that I'm filing a bill to forgive loans for students who major in certain disciplines when they are in college. I call them service jobs. And I think that in our offices, our not our interns, but our workers, our actual staff members, get help with their student loans. I think teachers' loans should be forgiven. Firefighters, police officers, nurses, people who go into the public defender's office and the state attorney's office, their loan should be forgiven. So I have a bill and I'm asking all of you to sign on for that. I also think that we need to incentivize some kind of way school districts to hire Black men, especially in elementary schools. You say you have a teacher shortage, and I'm sure you have a huge segment of African-American little boys who need role models in their school district who would change the whole climate of your school that's the hardest thing to find. But we've got to incentivize them with good pay, student loan forgiveness, all kinds of ways. So we have a bill that I'm going to be working with Mr. Bowman on to do that, to make that available. And I also think that children find themselves in a position with lots of student loans because no one really guided them in the 12th grade. So we have a lot of student loan counselors in college, but it's too late. They need to know where they're going, what not to get into. Is almost like credit card debt. You send them a new credit card. These private colleges send them an application. It looks good, so they signed up for it. So I think there needs to be a lot of prevention before we actually get into this student loan debt. And I think right now we can look at for a lot of relief. I don't know if everybody realizes, but it's a lot of money for public schools, K-12. The money was in all of the relief bills that we passed. And you have to remember that these schools were closed. So they saved money on gasoline for the school buses, electricity. So they have a pretty hefty budget. So I would work with my local school districts to make sure that they were spending the money wisely. And so when they actually get the rescue money from the last bill that our chairman worked so hard to get passed, that they will put that in a situation where it would best benefit all of our Title I students, because that's the formula that we use to get the money. And I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And I think the gentlelady from Pennsylvania mentioned using some of that money to catch up for lost learning. And that's one of the obvious purposes of the legislation. I'll remind members that if your camera is not on, you're not considered as present. So I'll recognize gentlelady from Iowa, Ms. Miller Meeks.
Thank you, Chair Scott and Ranking Member Fox. At this point in time, I don't have a question, so I will, if I may, reserve my time.
Okay, no problem. Dr. Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any I just wanted to, first of all, thank my colleagues for coming. I was especially interested in the school board member. And I started my career there too, and certainly the comments that she has made regarding our children is something that we really need to think about, and we have been thinking about it. But my education goes pretty far back for me. I started on the school board. My daughter is now a principal in Guilford County, and I'm hoping that we've got a pretty exciting committee. So I just want folks to know that I'm also working with my colleagues in the Senate to on a bill to strengthen teacher preparation programs. When I was a professor at Bennett College, I worked with the teacher ed program, and so we do have a need to build a strong, diverse workforce, a teaching workforce. Yes, we need more Black men in there too. So the comments that Congresswoman Wilson made, I think, are certainly very appropriate. So I want to just thank you all for coming, and Mr. Chairman, I thank you for giving us this opportunity today. I yield back.
Thank you. And I'll again remind members that if your camera is not on, you're not considered as present for the purposes of recognition. Next, Mr. Gentleman from Indiana, Mr. Mervin.
Thank you, Chairman. And respectfully, I just would like to thank all the members who joined us today for sharing their opinion and advocating for the educational system and your districts. And I yield back any of my time. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I appreciate the gentleman. And the gentleman from New York, Mr. Bowman. Wait a minute, excuse me, wait a minute. The gentlelady from California, Ms. Steele. Do you have questions?
Mr. Chairman, no, I don't.
Okay.
I'm just listening here.
Okay,
Thank you.
Sounds good. Gentleman from New York, Mr. Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the witnesses for being here, and thank you for bringing up the important issues of school infrastructure, and a special thanks to Jim for bringing up our English language learners and CTE programs. I've been fighting in New York to, expand access to CTE programs for a number of years. Way back in the day, they used to be pretty abundant in New York, and then we shifted to sort of this college or else perspective in our K-12 schools. And of course, college is important, and that's a pathway for many kids, but the CTE pathway is such an important one and such a powerful one. And what I keep telling people is, Representative Wilson is going to understand this, kids love to learn with their hands, and they love to work with their hands, and they love to learn by doing things and not just operating in the theoretical space. So, I appreciate you both for being here and uplifting those issues. And I just want to briefly associate myself with every single thing Representative Wilson mentioned. I started my career teaching in 1999 as an elementary school teacher. And as soon as I entered the classroom, I realized I was more than a teacher. I was a role model and father figure to these children of color who unfortunately didn't have a father figure in the home. And I was one of those kids. I grew up with a single mom, and I didn't have a father figure. So I knew the responsibility there, and had the privilege of serving over 20 years in K-12 schools, serving as a teacher, mentor, father figure to both young boys and young girls, Miss Wilson. They needed the connection and support as well. So no questions. I just want to offer my experience and expertise in whatever legislation you both are working on. It's really exciting. And thank you so much for being here. And hopefully next time we have one of these, we'll have 20 members of Congress presenting to the best committee in the House. So thank you both so much.
Thank you. Does any other committee member seek recognition? I noticed that the gentleman from Idaho, Mr. Fulcher, and the gentleman from California, Mr. DeSaulnier, are both on the screen. Are either seeking recognition, gentleman from Idaho?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you for holding this hearing. Just no questions today. Just appreciate the testimony, opportunity to listen and learn. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you. I wanted to make sure that since we did not have a roll call, that your presence was recognized. Mr. DeSaulnier, did you have a comment? Thank you. Does any other committee member wish to seek recognition? If not, I want to remind our colleagues that pursuant to committee practice, materials for submission for the hearing record must be submitted to the committee clerk within 14 days following the last day of the hearing, preferably in Microsoft Word format pursuant to House rules and regulations. Items for the record should be submitted to the clerk electronically by emailing submissions to edlabor.hearings@mail.house.gov. And again, I want to thank our witnesses for their participation today. The input of our colleagues is paramount to what we can accomplish in Congress. I ask the ranking member if she has any closing comments. Dr. Fox, do you have any closing? Dr. Fox?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I just thank all of our colleagues for being with us today, and hope everybody has a great break.
Good. Well, thank you. And I want to again join the ranking member in thanking our colleagues for joining us today and sharing your ideas with the committee. And if there's no further business before the committee, without objection, the committee stands adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.